Do you need a contract when you collaborate with other artists for your comic book? Yes. 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 100% yes. Let me show you what I use when I collaborate with other artists. Welcome back, friends. Welcome back. Okay, so first, disclaimer. I am not a lawyer. I am not trying to pretend to be a lawyer. I've watched a lot of episodes of Law and Order, but that does not make me a lawyer whatsoever. So when it comes to working with another person, the first thing is there should be a meeting of the minds. And this becomes a kind of an idea that you hear a lot of times in legal terms, was there meeting of the minds. It means, do we both understand what we're doing and do we agree on each role and our responsibilities and what we're doing? This comes down to, okay, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that. And when I break this down for each pillar of what matters in a contract, I'm going to talk about it in two ways. I'm going to talk about it if you are a collaborator, like in a 50-50 partnership, or if you are hiring someone as a work for hire. In either case, it should always be a meeting of the minds. And you basically talk it out all the way through. And it should be a full-on conversation. Nothing should be left off the table. Anything you can think of, bring it up. And if you're having a partnership with someone in a collaboration effort, you just sit down and you bring up everything. Okay, what are you going to do? How are we going to create the book? How are we going to market it? What money's being spent? Are we doing this? Or who's going to do that? This will come up. Who's going to be taking care of this? And again, it should just be a meeting of the minds. It's not the fun, sexy part of creating, but this is really important. And here's why. Contracts are not about getting married. Contracts are for divorce. So when people talk about having a prenuptial agreement, it's a contract saying, if it doesn't go well at the end of the day, this is how we're going to decide to split the assets or the things that we come together if it comes to an unfortunate end that we both don't want to happen. And people are afraid to have those conversations because it's unpleasant, and it can be unpleasant. It's better to have a conversation on day one than 10 years into the future when we're playing that was mine, this is his type of situation. The Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore did not end well on good terms.
Gets asked a question about how to get an artist to work for you and answers it this way.
As an aspiring writer and comic book writer, how do I go about getting an illustrator?
Trickery and deceit.
Unfortunately, that probably hit a little too close to home for some people, because a few weeks after the premiere of The Walking Dead, Tony Moore sues Robert Kirkman. He claimed that Kirkman had effectively deceived him when he sold him his portion of The Walking Dead, and referenced that podcast clip, saying, "Kirkman is a proud liar and fraudster who freely admits that he has no qualm about misrepresenting material facts in order to consummate business transactions, and it is precisely that illicit conduct which has led to the present lawsuit and to Kirkman's business success generally. He wanted to be relisted as a co-creator of The Walking Dead." Kirkman responded, "The lawsuit is ridiculous. We each had legal representation 7 years ago, and now he is violating the same contract he initiated and approved, and he wants to misrepresent the fees he was paid and continues to be paid for the work he was hired to do."
I don't know who was right or who was wrong, and maybe they could have both been right and maybe they could have both been wrong. But at the end of the day, there was a lawsuit. And most times when there's arguments or issue with this, but I find with a lot of indie people, it's come down to, again, there was not a meeting of the minds. One person thought this, the other one thought that, or they thought like, well, if I got here, I thought for sure you would do this. It's like, well, I didn't say that. Who said that? So that's why it's so important to lay all that stuff out from the beginning. Now, there are other people out here who are just nefarious, evil a-holes. They are specifically looking to rip you off. They're specifically looking to take advantage of you and looking to work you half to death for as little money as possible, to lie to you, to misconceive you, to make you think it's one thing, and then it gets to the end of the day and say, wait, where's my money? And they say, well, I never said that. And they're doing it on purpose, blank those people. If you find yourself in a place where those people, you think you're dealing with someone like that, I always say, I walk away. Even if the contract is solid, but if I know they're already not a good person to deal with, I don't want to be around them. I don't want to work with them. Because who wants to work with people when you always got to look over your shoulder if you know for a fact that they are shady people? So there's another channel on YouTube called The Business of Comics, and it's run by a guy named Gallman Hennessy. And his channel is almost like strictly just about the legal structure of comic books and the comic book industry. He's actually a lawyer. So he always talks about the 4 R's of a contract: rights, responsibility, revenue, and recovery. And so those are the 4 R's: rights, revenue, responsibility, and recovery. So the first part is the rights.
So this is a contract that I typically use when it comes to me hiring an artist. So I'm going to break this down into major components a piece at a time, and I'm just going to give you what it says and what it means in actual legal terms. So I'm going to come back to this over and over again throughout the rest of the video so you can see how what I'm explaining actually works in actual legal terms. 1. Services. Client's request and service provider agrees to perform the following specific services. That's the meeting of the minds. It's saying here are the people who are involved, and this is what we've agreed to. It's saying this is what we agreed to. So the service is that the artist will illustrate in pencil, ink, and gray tone issue of blank comic book series, also referred to as the project. This contract will continue to be binding on subsequent issues of said comic book project unless otherwise amended by agreement of both parties. So this is the same contract for every issue unless one of us comes to a decision to want to make an amendment to the contract. Okay, compensation. Okay, so who's getting paid? So the parties agree. Service provider, which would be the artist, will be compensated as follows. Shannon Newby, Out the House Media LLC, will pay blank was the artist $175 for each page. Okay, 3, ownership of work, and this is what we're talking about, the rights. As a result of this agreement, service provider will create work product, including but not limited to documents, presentations, reports, and the likes, physical and or electronic. All work product should be owned by client. Service provider does not maintain any rights to this work product and shall turn over all work upon the termination of this agreement. So this is where it comes to the rights. I own the work. So they cannot go and make their own book. If it's MUNCH, they cannot go make their own issue of MUNCH because they say like, well, I'm a part of this. I want to make my own book. I got a better story I want to tell. They have no rights to the characters, to the artwork, to the pages. It all belongs to me.
Mostly everything that I have ever done has been a work for hire. I hire people to do the work for the projects that I do. So in a work for hire capacity, the rights are always reverts to me. So I am paying the rate of what a person is asking for to create the work that I want them to create. If I'm paying for an artist or a letterer or whatever I'm doing, I'm paying the person to create the work for me. So if a person says, I want to do this, I need $225 a page to do this, to do the pencils and the ink. Okay, here's your $225 per page. And in the contract it says, I own the rights of the characters and the book, and that I am paying for this person as a work for hire to do this work for me. When it comes time for me to do the copyright, and if there's on the copyright, it says, is this a work for hire or who owns the copyright for this work? And if anyone else was involved, you put down that person's name as a work for hire. So it lets them know this person was involved, but they were a work for hire. Okay. On the collaborative side, so if you're collaborating with someone, and I'm going to say this in a sense, collaboration meaning that you're working with someone 50-50, you're 50-50 partners. If it is a collaborative effort, and again, how I work is like this. It's like 50-50. I don't see money exchanging hands because we got to be in it together. It's just how I work. You can decide. Some people may say, well, look, I'm the penciler and the inker. I think I need you to pay me $50 a page, which is below my rate, and we're still going to be 50-50 partners. If you agree to that, that's fine. That's not something I would do. I would say, especially if we're in the same realm of the indie world, I would say, we are in this together.
We ride together. We die together.
There's a great saying that I've heard when it comes to collaborating and doing partnerships with people. I'd rather have 30% of a watermelon than 50% of a grape. And this is just a personal aside. If you're working with someone, it's not good to get into ticky-tack of, I did this, you should have done this, I did A, B, and C, you only did A and B, because that's just a recipe for disaster. It's almost inevitable that someone's going to do a little bit more pulling than the other. It's just how things are. Also, very important, when it comes to responsibilities, the timeline of when the work is expected to be completed.
Timeline of completion. Artists will provide minimally 2 completed suitable pages a week until the completion of the book. So really important that you keep your artist on a timeline and a work for hire contract as well as a collaborative contract.
And I can't tell you the amount of times that I have talked to people who have started comic book projects and a year goes by and they haven't even gotten halfway through it. And this is with paid work and with collaborative work. So you have to keep a timeline, and you got to make that timeline in the contract of what you expect to get done and when you expect to get it done. Do not pay a person all the money up front. Never do that, because they will take the money, and again, not even being nefarious, but human beings are human beings. They take all the money, and then if they got all the money, they say, yeah, I got to get to this work, but they got the money. In the meantime, they're relaxing, they're chilling, they're doing stuff, and they spent all the money, and they didn't do any of the pages. And you're saying, hey, man, where are my pages? Where's my book? Oh, I got to get to that. And now they're out busy chasing other work to, basically maintain their life. And your project, because you already spent the money, they're not thinking about you at all. They will put you on the delayed, back burner, half-worked, terrible pages plan. And that's a bad place to be in. And that leads me to the next point. Quality of the work.
So, quality of work. Artists will provide a quality of work with each page that is reflective of the portfolio samples that was previously provided during the period of hiring. So this is important because artists sometimes will show you their best work and things they actually took their time to do well, and then they get hired to do your book, and they're just doing the easy stuff. So artists confided in me, especially if they think you don't know any better. People will do things where they basically cut corners to get it done quicker, and if they feel like you don't understand or know what you're looking at as far as an artist is concerned, they won't know the difference anyway. I'll just do it this way, cut corners, and so forth and so on. And it takes a time sometimes, I guess, to train your eye to understand what you're looking at, to know if the art is being half done or not. But when you look at the art and say, like, okay, this has got to be reflective of what you showed me. You showed me this great work is why I hire you. I expect the same work, and when you provide to me, what I'm paying you for. All right, moving forward, Shannon Newby, Out the House Media LLC, has the right to reject pages that is deemed by the client as unsuitable for the project. Rejected pages will have to undergo revisions until satisfactory for the client.
Revisions. You absolutely have to have in your contract that you have the right to reject a page if it is not up to the standard of what you want.
So as the publisher hiring artists, I want them to understand that they have to turn in quality work and that I can reject it as many times as necessary until they do it right. And that just kind of puts certain people on notice to know that, okay, I got to do my best work and I don't want to have to keep going over this. So let's make sure I do what I need to do correctly from the beginning. Fortunately, I work with some really good artists, and most time when pages are turned in, I don't ask for anything. I would say probably 80% of the time I accept the pages right from the beginning. But there are times I do have to ask for changes. They're typically small, 2 to 3 things, something small. But the one part about this in a contract, if you're an artist and you're not certain who you're working with, this could be intimidating because you don't want someone who doesn't know what they're doing or not sure what they want having you go back and redo revisions over and over again. So you got to kind of watch that side of it too if you're an artist.
So every page I get in, I peruse it with a fine-tooth comb. I go over every inch of the page across the board. And then when I look at the page, I go through the page, I then also look at the previous pages that were also turned in, kind of almost rereading the book up to that page, so that if that page makes sense. So when I get a page, I don't respond right away. It's okay, thanks. I usually take a day or even 2 before I come back and say, let's make some revisions. Because I want to be sure that when I look at it, I got it, step back, fresh eyes, come back, look at it again, looking at it in the context of the other pages. Does the artwork match the other artwork? Does the page work with the other pages? And anything that's wrong, I make a list of things that's wrong. If you have an artist and they turn in a page, tell them they have to change 20 different things. If you got to do that with an artist, you have the wrong artist. Because if a person is totally just not getting what you're doing, or maybe it's you just being overly nitpicky about every little thing that you're seeing on the page, then you probably it's probably a bad collaboration. You guys probably shouldn't be working together. I put in a copy of a standard contract that I use in the down below. You do not take it as gospel. Read it with a grain of salt. Use it with a grain of salt if you use it at all. And if you're not comfortable with it, I am not a lawyer. Go show it to a lawyer. Say, is this okay? They may say this works fine for what you're doing. They may say, like, no, you're leaving yourself exposed for all these other things. And again, this contract that I have down there is just what I use for a work for hire contract, what I typically use. Cool? Cool. Love you guys. Check your next video.